What is going on, everybody? It is so good to be back. Lots of NFL offseason talk starting to circulate as the Super Bowl is about to wrap up here in a couple days. So I decided to put out my top 3 positional team needs for each team in the NFL. We're going to rip through all of these, hoping to provide some entertainment analysis and also a bit of a guide for a lot of you that do like to make mock drafts. So before we head in here, please do hit that like button down below. It's the easiest way to support the channel and share this video. All right, starting off with the Chicago Bears. Pretty easy here at the top. Mitchell Trubisky. Time to kind of take a back seat. Maybe they explore some of these free agent quarterbacks or trade for a guy like Andy Dalton. You don't necessarily have to cut Trubisky, but it is time to kind of, like I said, have him take a back seat. And then at tight end, Trey Burton just hasn't really worked out. He can still go out and flex out as like a big slot receiver, but I do think this team needs a legitimate tight end. Adam Shaheen just hasn't worked out there, so someone that can block a little more perhaps. And then at corner, definitely creeping up as a need. I know some Bears fans that are actually almost ready to release Prince Amukamara. Looking at the depth chart here, that might prove problematic. You got Buster Screen in the nickel, but Kevin Tolliver, Duke Shelley. This team just needs an influx of youth and competitiveness at that position. Next up, the Detroit Lions. This team, to me, by the eye test, was one of the worst pass rushes in the NFL, so on the interior, they had some injuries. They should improve on the interior next year, but the edge needs some help. You've got Trey Flowers as a big free agent signing, a bit underwhelming, played a little more like a high-end number 2, but I'm not too worried about him. They need pass rushers other than him. They got Romeo Okwara's a good run defender, not much of a pass rusher, and Devin Kennard's kind of a flex outside linebacker hybrid. You do have Austin Bryant out of Clemson. But yeah, this team needs a better pass rusher to complement Trey Flowers. And then again, the linebacker room, still a concern here. So Devin Kennard, he's fine as a starter. But Jelani Tavai showed some nice things as that big-bodied middle linebacker. Still some concerns in coverage for him. Christian Jones will be back to compete. Jarrad Davis, it's time to move on from him. This team needs someone that can cover a little better in the second level of that defense. And then at corner, Darius Slay will be back, but he is a little fed up with the Detroit Lions. I can't say I really blame him. You got Justin Coleman in the slot. Amani Oruwariye set to be the number 2 heading into the year, heading into next year. I do like Oruwariye. I'm not sure if he's ready for that role quite yet. So with Melvin becoming a free agent this year, I do think that corner is a big need, and a lot of people are mocking Jeff Okudah to this team with the 3rd pick in the draft. Next up, the Green Bay Packers. Obvious number 1 need here is actually linebacker. Basically being forced here for the first time, probably since before Ted Thompson was the general manager, to actually evaluate the linebacker position. They have kind of systematically ignored that position for decades. But Kyle Shanahan, by saying we don't need our quarterback or our receivers or our defense or anything to beat the Packers, all we need is a track guy that can run from sideline to sideline, and Blake Martinez won't be able to catch up. So, the Packers are being forced to look at this position. Right now, it's just Oren Burks and Ty Summers on the roster. Could be the biggest need of any team on this entire list. Just looking at the depth chart there, it's kind of sad. They only have 2 guys, and neither of them are capable starters. Wide receiver, a big need. We all knew that heading into the year. I don't know what this team was thinking. Heading into the year with this roster, it was basically just Davante Adams and a bunch of nobodies. I had said heading into the year that Equanimeous St. Brown was the only guy I saw with starter upside on the entire team outside of Adams, and he missed the entire season. So they do get him back. Alan Lazard's a restricted free agent. He could be a wide receiver 3 or 4. He did show some nice things. Kumerow, Valdez, Scantling, whatever, they can compete for roster spots, but they need speed and a slot presence. And then at tight end, I do like Jay Sternberger, but they need someone other than a converted Division II receiver in that tight end room. So that's the Green Bay Packers. And then hit up Lizzo. We're going to need some new men on the Minnesota Vikings here on the interior defensive line. Just not really getting it done. Linval's not getting any younger there. He could be a guy that they renegotiate or even release. You got Shamar Stephen. He's old. They just need guys there. I do like Armin Watts, but that's going to be a big need for them. Corner, actually a huge need yet again for this team. You got Mike Hughes. Xavier Rhodes likely going to get cut here. You got Holton Hill, who I like, but he's got off the field troubles. Chris Boyd, a 7th round pick. And then Trey Waynes, Mackenzie Alexander are free agents, so they're going to need some corner help. And then interior offensive line. We've seen the Vikings offensive line. They could definitely use another starting guard there. Next up, the Dallas Cowboys. Top need for me is interior defensive linemen. They're losing a bunch of bodies there. So they're going to lose Collins, Covington, Ross. Hill is a second-round pick who's going to have to be better as their top guy really heading into next year. Cornerback, again, they're losing guys. Byron Jones, Anthony Brown on their way out. I like Lewis and Awuzie, but they're going to need help there. I don't think they're going to be able to retain Byron Jones. And then tight end, Jason Witten's going to retire here. Blake Jarwin, Dalton Schultz, kind of whatever. Those are the top needs for the Cowboys. The New York Giants, offensive tackle with Nate Solder, Mike Remmers, some veterans there with question marks. Pretty clearly need a tackle, especially, Daniel Jones has all these fumble issues. If he could have a more clean pocket that he can trust, those might not show up as much. And then at linebacker, Alec Ogletree is still there on a big contract. He could be a guy they release. Then you got Ryan Connolly, played all right before injury. They just need linebackers. David Mayo had a good year, but he's a free agent. Deion Buchanan. And then at center, Giants fans like John Halapio. I don't. I think they need a starting center. Philadelphia Eagles, obviously wide receiver, a huge need. They do have Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson under contract for next season, but both have pretty major injury question marks next to their names. Greg Ward kind of showed up as an intriguing young slot guy. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, a second-round pick. They've got some bodies there. Nelson Aguilar is going to be a free agent, but they need someone that they can head into next year with a little more confidence. Probably a first-round pick at wide receiver for the Eagles this year would be my guess in a really good class. At safety, they do still have Malcolm Jenkins, but he showed some clear regression. He's got 1 year left on his deal. Rodney McLeod, a free agent, so could use a starting safety there. Cornerback, big need yet again for this team. They're losing Ronald Darby and Jalen Mills, quite possibly their best two corners on a pretty bad group, so corner a massive need for the Eagles. Washington Redskins, three needs doesn't really do this team justice, but the top three for me were wide receiver. It's basically Terry McLaurin and a bunch of young guys and Paul Richardson. At corner, you do have Josh Norman, Quentin Dunbar. I actually thought Josh Norman was a free agent, but he's still under contract. You could do worse than those two, and Fabian Moreau, Greg Stroman. Problem is, Norman's not getting any younger, and Quentin Dunbar actually could be a solid number one corner for a while, or at least a good starting caliber guy. But regardless, that's a group that needs a lot of help. And then tight end, Jordan Reed's still under contract. Just don't know if that guy's ever going to play football again. Jeremy Sprinkle is there, whatever. They need tight end help. They just need offensive help in general. Moving on to the NFC South, the Atlanta Falcons. Edge rush, a huge need here. Takris McKinley is a low-end starter right now. He hasn't really worked out. The only other guy they have on that roster for next season is John Kaminsky, who's kind of that big-bodied Seattle DN archetype. Adrian Claiborne, Vic Beasley are going to be free agents, so an obvious need there. I put corner here. You could do worse than Trufant, Isaiah Oliver, Kendall Sheffield. Oliver and Sheffield have kind of shown flashes, but not guys I necessarily trust. And a big thing here is they really need someone that can be reliable in the nickel there. So corner a need, and then offensive line interior. They've kind of got some guys there. You still got Alex Mack there next year, Chris Lindstrom, James Carpenter, but Mack and Carpenter are not going to be the options there probably after this season. Mack showed some aggression. He's like 35 years old. So I think interior offensive lineman is going to be a big need as they try to kind of turn a new leaf with that offensive line. Carolina Panthers, this team, I've been saying this team's going to be the worst team in the NFL next year, and it keeps shaping up like that. Lots and lots of needs. But at the top for me is quarterback. And this is a little more controversial. I personally have no faith in Cam Newton's shoulder. For that reason, it's clear. This team needs a quarterback if you believe that. And then on the edge, this is a position for this team that I've been very critical of. Panthers fans love to point out their sack numbers, but you look at this roster, and it's not a talented pass rushing group at all. Brian Burns has potential. Then you got F.A. Abada, whatever, and then Addison and Irvin are free agents. So they need help on the edge. And then corner as well. I do think they will bring James Bradbury back, so that helps, but they just need depth in general. They need another starter in the nickel. And then the New Orleans Saints, this team had some actually pretty sloppy needs for considering how talented that roster was last year. And if Drew Brees actually retires, which is getting hinted at, that obviously would quickly pivot to the top here. But wide receiver, you're good with Michael Thomas, but Traquan Smith, Keith Kirkwood, is Taysom Hill a receiver? Austin Carr, it's a bunch of replacement level depth there. Ted Ginn's on his way out in free agency, so they need some receiver help at corner. You're obviously okay with Lattimore there, but Patrick Robinson, Janoris Jenkins, really big cap hits next year that I think are probably going to be releases for a team that is up against the cap. And then Eli Apple and PJ Williams are also free agents, so they just need bodies there. And then defensive tackle, Sheldon Rankins, I did give that injury concern. It just feels like he can't really stay healthy. I do hope the best for him. I liked him coming out. But other than that, you got Shai Tuttle, Taylor Stallworth, Mario Edwards, another likely cap casualty, a guy they could cut. David Onyemata is a free agent, so that defense is thinning out quite a bit next year. They really loaded up on talent last year. Then the Tampa Bay Bucks, offensive tackle, a desperate need here. You got Donovan Smith there at left tackle. He's fine. DeMar Dotson is set to be a free agent, so you got to basically bring him back because they got nothing else after him. Safety, Mike Edwards, Justin Evans, Jordan Whitehead, those guys are fine. This Bucs secondary has a lot of potential. They need an actual number one guy, either as a great free safety or a great strong safety. They might need both. I don't love anyone in that room. They're okay. And then at quarterback, Jameis, what do they do with him? Definitely a positional need there. I think everyone's going to agree with that. Arizona Cardinals, offensive tackle number one. DJ Humphries is set to be a free agent. Justin Murray played well last year, but how much do you really trust him, who's bounced around the league? So offensive tackle, a big need. And then on the edge, Chandler Jones, really the only guy in that room right now, so they need a lot of help there. Interior defensive line, again, looking down the road a little more. You got Corey Peters is getting up there in age. Zach Allen, I really like coming out, but didn't show all that upside that I saw as a kind of a 3-down interior guy. Maybe he reaches that next year, but closer to a project at this point. Michael Dogby, Zach Kerr is gone, Gunter, McDonald. They just need bodies on the interior there, and that was a big weakness. Like, teams could really run on the Cardinals last year. For the Niners, this team probably has the least needs out of anyone, outside of maybe the Chiefs, ironically the two teams in the Super Bowl, or maybe not ironically. But safety, a big need, especially if Jimmy Ward's going to hit that free agent market. Jaquiski Tartt's a decent, strong safety. Other than that, they need another safety, so that's pretty clear. But then wide receiver, I do think they'll bring Emmanuel Sanders back, so that's going to be much less of a need. But if he is to leave here, they are going to need either of these guys to step up or to bring someone else in. But Debo is an emerging star for me. And then at corner, I put this down because Sherman is getting up there in age, but he was incredible this year. But then Witherspoon, Mosley, K'Wan Williams, they're fine. Like, they really eat off of how good that pass rush is, but I still wouldn't necessarily say that position is a total strength for that defense. Then the Seattle Seahawks, offensive line, I don't even need to say anything else. Edge rush, a big need here. I don't know if Jadeveon Clowney will be back here. He was okay, but I feel like he's a guy that's just going to get totally fed in free agency, and I don't think the Seahawks are the team that's going to do that. Once is gone. Jefferson's a free agent. Brandon Jackson. They got to replenish that edge room quite a bit. And then at corner, I'm a lot lower on this group of corners than a lot of people. Shaquille Griffin's a good quality starter. He's kind of a fringe star, to be honest. But Trey Flowers, I've never been a big fan of him. He got absolutely exploited in that game against the Packers in the playoffs. And then Ugo Amadi, I think, can play in the slot, but they just ran way too much base defense. But I do like Ugo Amadi. But at the end of the day, this team just needs more corners and more talent, more athleticism in that room in general. And then the LA Rams rounding out the NFC. It's offensive line here. It's basically just Rob Havenstein and a bunch of nobodies. And then linebacker, a big need as well. It's, Corey Littleton and Bryce Hagger were the only two good linebackers in coverage there, and they're both free agents. The Rams are just screwed as far as cap is concerned. So this is going to be an interesting offseason for them to see what they can do. But I'm looking at offensive line and linebacker. They're pretty good everywhere else. And then for the Baltimore Ravens, as we transition to the AFC North, wide receiver, a pretty obvious need that showed up in their playoff game. Love Marquise Brown. Miles Boykin could maybe take a step up next year. Willie Snead is back, but I don't know if any of those guys are true number ones. Marquise Brown's a really good deep threat, but this team could just use better receivers. And then at linebacker, they did a great job getting Josh Bynes in there off the street. He played great, but he is set to be a free agent. He might get a decent contract. He's actually had a couple good years in a row. Patrick Venasaur, obviously Patrick Owasu, he's a free agent, so they need linebacker help. This team is very good at replenishing that group. And then interior offensive linemen, they don't need starters for next season. Marshall Yanda, he's contemplating retirement. I bet he comes back for one more season. Bradley Bozeman, Matt Skura is a restricted free agent. Does he get kind of bid up? We'll see how that plays out. So there's some question marks heading into the offseason. I think they're okay for next year, but looking down the road, they really need to add some talent and explosiveness to that interior offensive line. Then the Cincinnati Bengals, again, interior offensive line, a clear need for them. Don't really need to break that one down. Linebacker, a huge need for them. Jermaine Pratt is a interesting young player, and then everyone else stinks. And then quarterback, they will be drafting Joe Burrow, so we don't need to talk about that. Cleveland Browns, offensive tackle, huge need. Everyone's mocking tackles to the Browns. It's clear. Chris Hubbard is a very, very, very low-end starter. And then Kendall Lamb, Justin McCray, like, they're swingmen, but you don't want them starting. Greg Robinson's a free agent, so that's clear. And then at safety, it's a huge need as well. Morgan Burnett did not play well, but he's going to be back. Sheldrick Redwine, a rookie who was okay. And then Justin Burris, Randall, Murray, they're all free agents, so they need safety help desperately. And then interior defensive linemen, this may be looking a little more down the road. Both Richardson and Ogunjobi will be free agents after this season. I don't think either of them are going to get paid. Ogunjobi a little overrated in my opinion, so they could really use some more beef and physicality on the inside there. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers, again, looking down the road a little more for interior offensive linemen. This team's actually pretty loaded outside of the quarterback position, but DeCastro's not getting any younger, Marquise Pouncey's not getting any younger, and Ramon Foster, I don't even know if he'll be back next year. They need some new bodies to kind of get in there and develop so that they can turn that over and continue to churn out offensive linemen as they do. On the edge, it's nobody next to TJ Watt. Bud Dupree is a free agent. And then quarterback, I do think they think about a quarterback. Mason Rudolph clearly wasn't the answer there. I do think Big Ben will have a decent year next year, but it is time to start thinking about the quarterback of the future yet again because it's not Rudolph. Buffalo Bills, wide receiver, they just need some better options for Josh Allen. I like what John Brown and Cole Beasley do for that offense, but they need a true number one. Could that be a guy like T. Higgins in this draft? Who knows? And then running back, I actually am probably going to get some flack for this because, Singletary's a good player. He's a starting caliber running back. To me, when I look at the Bills, they're a team that could actually really benefit from a star running back because they're going to play good defense with their coach and culture there. But how explosive is that offense ever going to be with Josh Allen? I don't know. Might be best to actually be more of a run-oriented team at times. And I don't know if Devin Singletary is the guy that's going to give you that high upside. So I'm talking about taking one of these top four running backs, a guy like J.K. Dobbins or Jonathan Taylor. And then the edge group, looking down the road, they're going to need some bodies. Jerry Hughes getting a little older. Trent Murphy going to be free agent after this year. And Shaq Lawson, a pending free agent this year. Miami Dolphins, it's basically everything that isn't linebacker, corner, maybe, and receiver. But offensive line, seriously, blow it all up, start over. Maybe Michael Dieter works out, but they suck. The edge room is a total joke there. It's like Avery Moss and Taco Charlton. This roster is so bad, and I actually have those needs above quarterback. Quarterback is a need, but as I've kind of done in my mocks, I don't know if they necessarily should take a quarterback because the rest of this team is so bad. I would build it up and take a quarterback next year. And then New England Patriots, got to put the quarterback up there. What happens with Tom Brady? It's really hard to even know anything about that situation. My gut tells me he'll just be back next year, but it's starting to feel more and more like that might not happen. Tight end, this tight end room stinks. One of the biggest needs of any team on this entire list. And then safety, they need safety help. Devin McCourty's set to be a free agent. Bill Belichick known for letting guys go as they age. So is he on his way out? Patrick Chung getting older with off-field legal issues right now. And then Duron Harmon as well has been there forever, but has never really been a starter. So they need a safety there, especially if Devin McCourty's not going to be back. And then the New York Jets, offensive tackle, desperate need here. You do got Chuma Edoga there. Was Sam Darnold's tackle in college, but I don't trust him. Beacham's gone, Shell's gone, Cavale's gone, Lewis is gone. They need tackles desperately. And then the edge group as well, their top two guys, Copeland, Jenkins, they're set to be free agents. They've got all these kind of retreads here with Basham, Willis. You could go with them again, but they need starting talent on the edge. And then wide receivers, clear need as well. Robbie Anderson's gone. Demaryius Thomas is gone. He actually had a big impact on this team last year, so he's gone. So they need wide receivers, clearly. The Houston Texans, Bradley Roby and Jonathan Joseph are set to be free agents at corner. You could bring one of them back, and all of a sudden, this isn't the worst-looking cornerback room in the world, but that secondary showed some pretty clear flaws this year, so they need some help in the secondary still. I'm not a big Lonnie Johnson fan. And then on the edge, J.J. Watt kind of counts as an edge. He's kind of a hybrid. Whitney Merciless, probably his last year in Houston this year, if I had to guess. Scarlett's fine. But just looking down the road, like this team, it can't just ignore this position this offseason. I think they need some youth there and someone to have optimism for the future. And then I put running back down here. Hyde had a great year. Lamar Miller's finally gone here in Houston. Duke Johnson's a third down back. They need a running back. To me, they need a three-down running back, kind of like what Carlos Hyde did for them this year, but maybe a younger, more explosive guy. And then the Indianapolis Colts, quarterback, a need there. Jacoby Brissett is fine, but it's a great situation. This team didn't have a lot of huge needs other than that quarterback room, so it's a great opportunity for a young guy to come in, maybe like a Jake Fromm or a Jordan Love. Interior defensive line, this one's looking a little more down the road. Danico Autry, Marcus Hunt are fine. Neither are star players. Danico Autry's pretty close, but they could use a true force in the middle, like a big body, like a Chris Jones, Kenny Clark type of force in the inside of that defense. And then wide receiver, I really struggled with the last need here. I honestly don't really trust T.Y. Hilton too much more. I just feel like his body's slowly breaking down a little bit. I do like Zach Pascal. He's a low-end number 2 starter. And then Paris Campbell's a big question mark. But they could certainly use one more receiver there to come in and compete. Then next up, the Jacksonville Jaguars. That cornerback room is getting real thin. You do got Bouye there, but they need bodies. Interior defensive linemen. You got Bryan. You got Aubrey Jones. I think Marcel Darius, they can save $20 million in cap space from releasing him. That's a clear cut. So they're going to need bodies on the interior. Quarterback, they won't address this offseason, but I'm not saying that's the right thing to do necessarily. I get it. See what you have in Gardner Minshew. It is my opinion that neither of these quarterbacks are the future of this team. And they're kind of just SOL with the whole Nick Foles contract situation. They did that to themselves. The Tennessee Titans, I have the edge at the top here. I love Harold Landry. I think he could really emerge as a true star next year, but they need someone other than him. Cam Wake will be back, but looking down the road, they need maybe a more power rusher next to Harold Landry. And then corner, they're running out of bodies there. Logan Ryan is gone. Smith and Sims, who have been depth there, they're gone. So they need to bring in some young corners there. And then obviously quarterback, I do think Ryan Tannehill will be back next year. He is set to be a free agent. But even if they do that, I'm not necessarily sold on him as the quarterback of the future there in Tennessee. I still feel like that's a little bit of a Band-Aid. And he was great this year, but I don't know how much I trust that to continue. All right, heading out west for the last division here, the Denver Broncos, wide receiver, a clear-cut need here. Pretty similar like the Green Bay Packers. You got Courtland Sutton, who is awesome. Maybe Hamilton takes a big step up in his third season. I did like him coming out, but other than that, you got nothing. So they need receiver, and then they need corner as well. We'll see what happens with the Chris Harris situation. Honestly, with or without Chris Harris, they still need corners, but that obviously amplifies it. Bosby had a great season, but he went to IR with a weird, I don't know if it was a concussion or a neck injury. Hopefully he's okay. He showed some promise. Isaac Yiadom, good athlete, young player. Duke Dawson they got from New England, kind of a slot corner type of guy. But yeah, they need some help in the secondary. And I put running back here. Broncos fans won't like that. Some Broncos fans have come around with what I was saying about Phillip Lindsay heading into the year, that he wasn't going to repeat that Pro Bowl season, that he's fine. He's like an explosive, poor man's Chris Johnson kind of. He's fine. But I think he's going to be a free agent after this year. I'm not the biggest Royce Freeman guy. Booker's gone. This is another team that I think could benefit from having kind of a true feature back that can do a little more than Phillip Lindsay brings to the table. Then we got the Kansas City Chiefs here. Number one for me is linebacker. They are stuck with Anthony Hitchens no matter what. That contract is terrible, but that does not mean they necessarily have to start him. I think the Niners are going to really exploit this part of this defense. So to me, that linebacker group really needs some help. Then I've got center. Austin Reeder's fine, but I think a real force in the middle there to be kind of that franchise center to age and grow up with Patrick Mahomes could be a really nice addition for this offense. And then running back as well. I do like Damian Williams, but it's kind of hard to trust him to stay healthy. He's only got one more year left on his contract. I doubt they pay him. So why not bring in a running back that's going to have that cheap 4-year contract, come in with fresh legs, and be more of like this team's Kareem Hunt that they had that true feature back that was so scary not so long ago. So those are my Chiefs needs. And then the Chargers, obviously quarterback going to go up there. Phillip Rivers will not be back. Tyrod Taylor is not the answer. I doubt it's Easton Stick. So that one's pretty obvious. Offensive tackle, Russell Okung will be back, but just an injury-ridden last couple of seasons, especially this last year, 2019. Got Sam Tevy, whatever, Trent Scott, Trey Pipkins developing. They need tackle help. This was the second worst line in the NFL outside of the Miami Dolphins. And then interior defensive line continues to be a problem for this team. Justin Jones did step up this year. Brandon Mebane is still there. I think he'll probably get cut, but he could stick around. Jerry Tillery was miserable, first-round rookie. And then other than that, they don't really have anyone. So interior defensive line and offensive line needs for the Chargers. And then the Raiders, wrapping up this video. Lots of needs here, but linebacker for them. This is one of the worst linebacker groups in the entire NFL. Tahir Whitehead should get cut here. I don't know if they will cut him. They seem to really like him for some reason. Markel Lee coming back from injury, but they need help at linebacker. And then wide receiver, I like Tyrell Williams, a deep threat. You got Hunter Renfrow in the slot, but they need a true number one. A guy like an Amari Cooper here would be kind of nice, but, whatever. And then on the edge, Raiders fans are going to hate this because they think Max Crosby's as good as Nick Bosa, and they think Clelin Ferrell was a great pick at number 4, but that's just not the truth. Clelin Ferrell is a good run defender and a low-end number 2 pass rusher. Coming out of Clemson, that's really what his upside was, and he had a terrible first year rushing the passer. And then Max Crosby, great. He had some sacks on like a really low pressure rate for a double-digit sack season. I don't think Max Crosby is a starter in the NFL. Arden Key, same thing. And the thing with edge rusher, like these guys could all be starting caliber players, but you need that true number one. Oh, kind of like a Khalil Mack. I wonder where this team could get something like that though. That'd be tough. Or like a Josh Allen. Oh. All right. Well, that's the top 3 team needs. I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, please do hit that like button. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Cheers as always, and we'll see you later. Peace out.